because there's been so many rough launches. But interestingly enough, all three of us have slightly different opinions on where Web3 is going.
You really have to tap into the psychology. How do degens actually think? They want a few specific things, right? So they want to be able to have life-changing potential return.
Without realizing the reason the narrative broke out is because they did something different. Web3 gaming, at the same time, I think we're gonna start seeing more innovations that, like, having worked in the Web2 space, there are so many problems that blockchain actually offers a solution to.
And if you know the game well, you know when you want to bet on yourself. And I think that's something that is actually sustainable. Is more value flowing into the economy than is flowing out?
Back in 2021, 2022 with the metaverse era of like, let's create the world first, but they created empty worlds. There was nothing there of substance for people to actually build interesting behaviors around.
We're here at the Solana Creator House, and look, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to this team and they were like, Jorge, you're a marketing agency in this space, but you know, the real way to market things has to be with the right team that knows how to get to the investors, how to get to the meta gamers, how to get people playing in a game with their true economy. And they were like, Jorge, do you want to win? And I was like, yeah, man, like, I want to win. And he goes like, do you want to win so much that you don't want to stop winning? And I was like, yes. I was like, yes, what do I got to do? And he's like, bring me to your show in San Francisco and we will tell everybody about what's happening at WinWin. So I was like, bro, that's like a win-win decision. I was like, get these guys down here. Tell me, guys, we're here. We're live in San Francisco. The fucking timelines are saying Web3 gaming is dead. And I was like a CPR. I was like, tell us, guys, tell us. Why is the timeline saying Web3 gaming is dead? Kick it off, man.
Yeah. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Nick. I'm a game designer. I've been working with WinWin for over 2 years now. And my team is with me. Why is Web3 gaming dead on the timeline? Well, it's because there's been so many rough launches. And there really hasn't been a strong product market fit yet that we're really looking for. But interestingly enough, all three of us have slightly different opinions on where Web3 is going. And it's not exactly where it is right now today.
So you hear that, right? We might, after this talk, be going to McDonald's and filling out the application, or we might be heading down to the Lambo dealership and putting in our deposit for our new Huracan. So guys, stay tuned. We're about to find out what it is that, why are these people saying Web3 gaming is dead? Why are these guys telling you it's not dead? So tell me, what is the thesis right now? What do we need to tell people that why Web3 gaming isn't dead and it's alive?
Let's do it. Everybody, I'm Kiefer Zhang. I'm a token and economy designer at WinWin. So I think there's a few different ways that people can explore what could be the potential future of Web3 gaming. And so we kind of have this split in the road here. So in one direction, we can really go for the real games, targeting the real gamers. They can reach that much wider Web2 gaming audience. We can also go down a more speculative path, build something that is for the degens. And if you want to do that, you really have to tap into the psychology. How do degens actually think? And they want a few specific things, right? So they want to be able to have life-changing potential returns, right? If you're building something like Cambria, for example, super great team, super high quality game there. But some people want to be able to win big. We're not talking about like a casino, double your money thing. But there's also something there too about what I call the illusion of control. And I think it's what sets this generation of degens apart from, like, say, like your gamblers in the casino, because they want something where they feel like they have an edge, even if they don't. Like, I know a lot of people that have been throwing a bunch of money at meme coins this past cycle, and they feel like they're in early. They got the alpha. They're not the exit liquidity. And so they're looking for these experiences where they feel like they have an edge. And they also want to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And so I think we're going to see some games that take some of those psychological elements and can cater to those more speculative users and make that experience something that is there for the degens. Or if you're building something that is a quality game for Web2 players, if you have a Web3 loop and you have a token in there, think about how you can create a metagame experience that caters to those users, that caters to that kind of psychological drive. I have one more other interesting category to get back to, but I want to toss it over to Nick. Yeah, anything you want to add on that?
I mean, dude, you seem like right now you're like, you don't know what this guy's talking about, right? tell me why Web3 game isn't dead. Give us your take.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey everyone, Daniel, one of the designers of WinWin. I've been in gaming a long time. Started at Blizzard, went to Activision, designed big time, ran Gods on Chain, and something that's constantly seen like throughout the space is I think most of the innovation in Web3 gaming plateaued probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I think we saw a lot of copy paste, essentially people trying to chase the narrative that broke out without realizing the reason the narrative broke out is because they did something different, right? And I think, unfortunately, since like there was so much liquidity in the space, both from like the VC side and the crypto side, we ended up getting a lot of studios that, were copy paste, get funded, but you don't win by copy pasting, right? And so now I think we're seeing a little bit of the backlash there. However, I mean, I've heard Web3 gaming is dead multiple times. You guys have as well. And then it comes back when another game kind of launches and is able to create a new narrative. So I think like Web3 gaming with its current audience is not dead. It's kind of going through a cycle. But at the same time, I think we're going to start seeing more innovations that having worked in the Web2 space, there are so many problems that blockchain actually offers a solution to. And no one's actually gone back and said like, oh yeah, we struggled a lot of this with like Hearthstone or like Overwatch. That could have been fixed with blockchain. And I think hopefully in this next cycle, we'll start seeing a lot more of that.
So if you're watching this, this is the message that they're sending. It's pretty simple. It's just like so simple. Unfollow anyone that is saying Web3 game is dead. Get them out of your timeline. Get the right people to follow. These guys are literally telling you this straight up alpha on how Web3 gaming is. They're saying, hey, look, there's roadblocks. We're building. It's an emerging market. You know what? We don't got it. We don't have that playbook just yet. But we are getting to that playbook, right? Where do you think we're going to go? Where do you see the biggest solution? How do we fix this current sentiment? What do you think is it the economies? Is it the games? Is it the design of the games? Is it the community? Is it the way we're interacting with the community? What's the solution? Tell me, how do we win?
Yeah, people are saying Web3 gaming is dead because people are down bad, which makes a ton of sense. Everything is down bad right now. And gaming generally is down really, really bad. But Web3 is a technology. It's a way to create a new business model, a new way to deliver a game product. And frankly, with all the changes in UA going on, UA is definitely increasing. We absolutely need a way to go direct to consumer as well. And Web3 really presents that opportunity. So Web3 as a technology really does work, and it's a way to streamline global payments as well. So there's a huge benefit to using Web3, and that's going to stay. Even if it's not using a token in the game, it'll probably be using, say, a stablecoin in the game. It'll probably be using NFTs just as the premium items because you want constrained supply with NFTs. That's the only way that it really holds value. For something to hold value, it needs to be exclusive. It needs to be exclusionary. And a lot of people don't like that because it's directly contrasting with what games really want, which is more people to be playing. So if we can fix that a little bit, and we all have theses about why that can be fixed and how it can be fixed. If we can fix that piece, that's how Web3 gaming wins. So if you're looking at Web3 gaming, I'm personally seeing a split in how Web3 gaming develops in the near future. It doesn't look like it does today, but both paths are going to be followed at the exact same time. The first one goes towards where I call standard video games, right? It's going to look and feel like these video games that they exist today, but the back end, the undergirders behind it will have Web3 rails. So that's probably true. It'll probably use stablecoins. It'll probably use some type of NFTs. It'll probably use these rails just to deliver the same features, but in a more clean way. The other direction is what Kiefer noted before, which I think is that Degen angle, that full crypto native angle. And I wrote an article about this a couple of years back called "Why Web3 Games," or why. What was the article?
Are you being a Degen?
Memory is so bad. Why fun games won't solve Web3 gaming. And that was in the timeline where everybody was saying like, oh, all we need is fun games. That'll solve Web3 gaming. It's like, that's not actually the answer. Web3 games need to appeal to a certain type of player. It's a different type of fun because fun is a completely subjective concept. And so if you're not attacking the certain type of player with their desired type of fun, it's not going to hit. And so where I think Web3 gaming, which I'm kind of calling crypto gaming, native crypto gaming, where that really sits, it appeals to a different type of person. It appeals to risk and reward gameplay. It appeals to push your luck style gameplay. I think there's a really strong component of UGC as well as composability, open sourcing that stuff and allowing everybody to jump in and help contribute. I think on-chain MMOs really sit in this category. And I also think things like Wolf Game as well as on-chain heroes really sit in that category. But I've been frustrated that we haven't really innovated on that front. So that's actually why I'm breaking out of the typical tokenomics consultancy mode and going towards actually designing a game on chain.
Man, this guy's on fire. What is in your coffee, man? Damn, this is why you need WinWin. I mean, like, come on, guys. Like, do I need to tell you anything else? Look, man, you bring up some phenomenal points, right? And I think that, like, for me, I always like to say this, right? Some people say, history repeats itself in a way or rhymes, however you want to, like, put it, right? I come from the finance industry, right? I spent, my whole life working there. And in 2013, we used to always say that Bitcoin was fake internet money, right? 2017, 2019, all the banks started looking at Bitcoin and everything. It's 2025 and every single bank offers crypto. Every single one, right? I think it's repeating itself with us here in gaming, right? Last year, a couple of years ago, we saw, Xbox, or now we have PlayStation, all of them looking at entering this, seeing what we're building. They're kind of just the R&D's turned on, right? So are we going to be in the next step of once these games fully release, once these games figure out the economy, once these games figure out these rails of how the technology is empowering the game, how these games are going to interact with the technology, and is the technology something that they're going to say, I don't give a shit about the technology. Put out the game. Yes, you're going to incentivize the rewards. Yes, we have different type of gamers, like you're mentioning. There's different type of audiences. Do you see us having that same cycle next? And I say this as well. Like, this is a massive year because I believe the 2020 or 2021 graduation year of VC funding that, funded the 2020 cycle is finally going to be released, right? We have about 3 or 4 massive titles releasing at the end of this year. Do these titles now are able to say to the world, like, and a lot of Web2 developers and publishers that are literally looking at what we're doing because they haven't really understood or seen yet the product actually work. Are they here now saying, okay, we're going to see what they're going to do. Once we figure it out, then we'll go back to the table and we'll say, you know what? The marketplace, great. I like that. Let's use this. Hey, the payment system, USDC, USDT stables, great. You know what? Let's incorporate it and convert it in some sort of XP points, whatever, right? Do you see that happening as you mentioned kind of, hey, there's these 3 types. Is it because there hasn't been a way to fully integrate how games are designed and the economies are designed to bring real value to what like the token is meant to be and not be seen as like we're talking about degens and hey, like the next 100x coin, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think innovation happens in cycles. And I think we've seen this pretty much every 10 years in video gaming since the dawn of video games. We go through a monetization shift. And I think we've been going through another one. And it's tough. Whenever you go through a step change in innovation, there's a lot of new failures because we're trying to figure out what the new business model really is at its core. And when we started doing Web3 gaming, the thought process was, oh, let's just take everything that already exists in Web2 and swap it over to Web3. So that includes premium currencies, that includes soft currencies, that includes the assets in the game. Let's put it all on chain and let's see what happens. And unfortunately, those two things don't actually operate at a one-to-one because Web2 gaming, they can give away a lot of this stuff for free, but as soon as there's a price to it, as soon as it's tradable on the open market, it automatically has a price to it. Like that's one of the features of anything on blockchain. As soon as something's tradable, somebody will attribute some value to it. And if you're giving away that stuff for free, then if people have opportunity costs, they're just going to sell it and say, pay their rent. And so I personally don't feel that rewarding just for playing is long for this world, unfortunately. I also don't feel that PvP skill-based is long for this world either. And there's two reasons for that. Number one, if you got 100 people, 50 of those people are below average just because of math. half of those people, maybe they continue playing, but then they start churning out because they don't want to continue betting and losing, right? So you start getting a smaller and smaller player base. So if you're just rewarding for skills, eventually your player base will implode. Yeah, it's economically sustainable, but it's not game sustainable. And so if you really want something to work on that, you need to have some situation where the best players can still lose. And so it can't be pure skill based. Or there needs to be some imbalance in the game. There needs to be some asymmetry in the game, because that's what makes games really fun. And the best example of this comes from Web 2. And I love Marvel Snap. If you know anything about me, Marvel Snap is just so good, because you can have a completely imbalanced game and still have it be fun, where you come in and your deck might be really, really good, but the locations that show up change the rules. And so you might have a disadvantage in that particular match. What I really love about Marvel Snap, though, is you have the opportunity to identify that you're at a disadvantage and retreat. And I think stuff like that should absolutely be in more games, more Web3 games. The knowledge of, hey, you can bet on yourself. And if you know the game well, you know when you want to bet on yourself. And I think that's something that is actually sustainable. So we're talking about, like, can this economy be sustainable? That all is just like, is more value flowing into the economy than is flowing out. And that's what sustainable means, right? So I'm going to pass over to Kiefer, because I know he's got a lot of thoughts on sustainable economies. He thinks a lot about MMOs and economies in general.
Yeah, so I think that there's a type of game, a category that has been wildly underexplored within Web3. And my thesis there is on virtual nations as a category. So setting an example for this. So EVE Online and what CCP is building as well with EVE Frontier is a good reference point, where fundamentally a virtual nation is a single sharded world. So everyone is together in one place, where natural resources provide the fundamental building blocks for people to compete, to socialize, to build emergent gameplay around. I think a lot of people took somewhat of a similar lens back in 2021, 22 with the metaverse era of, like, let's create the world first, but they created empty worlds. There was nothing there of substance for people to actually build interesting behaviors around. And so if we look at sort of what was done with EVE Online, you get these worlds where people can have a much wider and richer range of behaviors that I think are going to appeal to a lot of the people in Web3 who have been stuck with the type of behaviors of, let me buy something and then maybe they'll sell it for more later. Like that's really exciting, right? And it is to an extent. But if you think about things like, hey, can we create corporations and have corporate espionage against other people, or try to manipulate markets, or take a dangerous route through an asteroid field to arbitrage prices between different areas, taking these risk and reward opportunities, it opens up this whole world of gameplay that is interesting to people who like that economic real world component that I think just opens up everything about Web3 and economies. And another just whole aspect of this is that this is a peer-to-peer economy. It's not the studio is creating a token or creating value for people to extract and earn from. It's you are creating something, a real economic value to somebody else. And as an example, you leverage your skills from exploring through this previously unexplored area, and you can go and guide people. Or if you're a really skilled fighter, you can be a bodyguard to protect a trading route. You can find your niche within this world and get real economic value because you are good at it, because you have found an edge, because you have found hidden information. And that opens up so much. And I'll bring up another example too of Second Life. Second Life is an OG metaverse, been around for over 20 years. They have a currency that it predates Bitcoin, but it's tradable against the dollar. And their economy is all about people creating value for each other. They're creating assets, they're creating experiences, they're creating buildings and worlds. And it is all about how can you actually create value within this world? How can you make it rich and interesting? And that's how you get something much larger where a culture can develop. It's it's not just about coming in and coming out and seeing your friends, but you can build infrastructure, a layer of infrastructure, a layer of government, a layer of culture. If you look at EVE Online, they had Game of Thrones like battles that literal books have been written about. They have a god called Bob, the god of wormholes that people legitimately worship. And I think if we can get these types of world built out, is the perfect use case of Web3 tech. And I'm really excited to see that move forward.
I think if you guys are watching this, I'm holding actually your phone, and I think it's like going off like every 2 seconds. I think people are trying to reach out to them right as we speak because they're like, holy crap, like, how do we get win-win? Let me ask you guys, quick shill plug, like, where are the people supposed to be following you? Because like, this is the alpha. This is what they need. They need a win too, man. Like, they keep buying the token, then the creator, the KOL, or somebody sells the top, and then they're stuck holding the bags, man. How do we change that, right?
Yeah, we fundamentally believe in win-win opportunities because the world is not entirely PvP. The world is actually quite synergistic because there's so many opportunities where you can find ways to assist each other and make something greater than yourselves. And so that's a fundamental belief of what we have at WinWin. Where you can find us, we don't actually have a company Twitter page. We are all individuals who have their own thoughts and are working together to bring about the new age of gaming. So you can follow me at Metzler Games.
I actually have a special handle. It's called Stupidnomics. So you can definitely follow at Stupidnomics. And that I talk a lot about the stupidity of what you guys see in the real world, as well as things within Web3 gaming, NFT, and crypto.
There's no stupidity in Web3 gaming. No,
talking about it.
Guys, like, it's like a straight up, it's going to the moon. We're all like getting astronaut gears and everything. Like, come on, man.
It's just a bit bumpy along the way.
It just runs out of fuel and then hits the wall again. How do we make sure we got you plugged in?
I am at Kiefer Zhang on everything. So yeah, find me on X.
And you can also check me out on Hulu Friday, April 11th. I'll see you on the big screen. I'm playing a reality game show. Like, this guy doesn't stop. Just gonna drop it right there.
Like, let me tell you something. I don't know how, like, this guy's creativity with the win-win name, like he actually like took it farther than that. Like, he was like, I'm gonna win in tokenomics design. I'm gonna win and make my own game. And now this guy's on the big screen. That's only in Web3 gaming, right? Like, oh man,
we're going to the mainstream, baby.
Yeah, adoption is coming. Guys, you guys have brought up some great topics, some great discussions. Where can we see now? You mentioned the untapped market. You mentioned the 3 phases or 3 steps to analyzing the audience behind what we've been building. And so what is it that is truly, truly missing at its core? Is it like that we're saying, gaming isn't fun? That's not the thing. The game is not developed. The game needs to be developed. What is the true core missing thing?
I'll be happy to take this one. So we've looked at a lot of games. We've worked a lot of games, right? Even before WinWin. And the difference between a good game that succeeds and a good game that dies comes down to 3 pieces of the puzzle. One is the publishing and distribution. The other one is the monetization. And the last one is the live operations of the game, right? So there's like a graveyard of great games on Steam that either couldn't find their players. Once they had players, had no idea how to make money off the players, so the studio dies. Or they launch and everyone's like, this is great. And 3 months later, everyone's gone because the game had nothing else to keep it fresh. And honestly, what's great about those 3 elements is that's not a Web3 problem. That is a game problem, right? And so there's nothing inherently present within Web3 that makes the game more likely to fail. It's not true, actually. I have the opposite opinion. I think what's amazing with Web3, and I saw this really deeply when I was managing Gods Unchained, is you can create a tight-knit core community and they can keep your studio going, right? It's not like go big or go home within Web3. And the fact that these players now have a significantly bigger vested interest in the success of your game. Like, I remember having to jump in the community, be like, guys, like, we're turning on marketing now. Like, we got a new campaign going. Everyone's like, yay, fantastic. And it's like, no gamer ever cared about that, right? But at Web3 they do. And so I think because they care that much more about the game, especially when they come in early and support you as you're building, they're willing to spend so much more on you guys and help sustain the studio as you just start playing around and developing the game. So I think for me, like Web3 studios, definitely like community first. Like think of yourself as an indie studio. Don't try to be big. Don't try to, pretend to be a AAA studio. You're an indie studio built together with your community, but you're not just building a game, you're building a business. So you got to keep in mind, how are you getting game into the hands of players? How are you going to make money off these players? And then how are you going to keep this game fresh after it launches? You solve those three, like it doesn't matter if you're Web3 or Web2, you have significantly higher chances of succeeding.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah.
Are you spying on my calls? This guy has to be spying on my calls.
I just had ChatGPT.
Yeah, like literally. So it's hilarious, right? Again, I have a finance background, right? I've always talked to investors my whole life, right? I know how to talk to investors. I know business plans, financial analysis. How do you turn the lights on in year 5? How do you make payroll in year 5, right? The basic questions of a business, right? Again, we did this my whole life in Wall Street and everything. And I came into Web3 gaming and I was like, oh man, I'm selling investments again, really? But just unregulated, right? I can say whatever I want. Like before I used to be like, I'm going to write this tweet. And then my lawyer would be like, yeah, it's not compliant. Now it's hit send, you hit send, put it out there. And thing for me is I talk to so many games that want to hire the gaming strategist, right? And for me, I always say this, I need to understand how to make revenue. Like if you're going to hire me, cool. But I want to make sure that either I could self-sustain the company, like with revenue, or I could understand how we get there. Mm-hmm. I don't want to know about the campaigns. I want to know about what the roadmap looks like. I want to align correctly with a marketing that could actually help bring users and help bring whatever the revenue is for the game and help them understand how it works. Not just, hey, let's all pump the token and then bam, go down. Yeah. And I think for me, like
tokens are not revenue.
Oh man, don't even get me started with that one, please. Oh man, let's do the next NFT sale, and then let's go for the Series A.
I'll start with there in a second. Yeah, go on.
And so there's this very well misunderstanding in Web3 that games are a business at the end of the day, right? And you do need to have a business plan. I talk to so many games, and I'm like, "Hey, who's the CFO?" And they're like, "A CFO? Like, yeah, the guy, managing. They're like the guy managing the day to day, like all the stuff." And they're like, "Yeah, we haven't hired him." I was like, "All right, who's our legal officer?" Yeah, and I'm like, God, like, I know we're unregulated, but like, we still like have to make sure like we're doing things. So I believe that there's a lack of an experience of understanding business. There's a lack of an experience of understanding economies. There's a lack of understanding of marketing agencies in Web3 gaming, right?
I think I'm going to push back on that. Yeah, I think there is a strong understanding of business and economies and game design. But the tough part is we're using a different technology with an audience that wants a different type of thing. And the tough part is there was a thought process around, well, if there's a lot of people in Web3 gaming that will automatically just jump in and start playing and paying, and the ARPUs are amazing, well, then that's phenomenal. And the Web2 funding market absolutely collapsed in the last couple of years. And so Web3 VCs were pretty much the only ones funding games. So a bunch of founders came over and were like, all right, well, they're saying that the opportunity in the market is here. Let's try it. Let's build. Let's go for it, right? But the tough part is the audience really wasn't there. The audience didn't ever materialize. And it put off so many Web2 gamers that it caused Web2 gamers to be completely allergic to anything that Web3 gaming was doing. And that's almost kind of an own goal. Web3 gaming did it to itself, and Web3 just in general did that to itself because it was so gambly, so degen. there's so many Web3...
What?
There's so many Web3 game founders that want to do this the right way, that want to be compliant, that want to deliver an incredibly fun experience. But the tough part is it hasn't really been figured out. And that happens in cycles. The feedback loop for these things is really slow because it takes so much money and so much risk to actually build games that are fun and to build up a community that wanting to play the game. So Dan, I know you've got a lot of thoughts on those three things about how a game actually succeeds. I want to jump back to that and make sure you got a chance to speak about it.
Yeah, I do disagree. I do think most games don't know any of those three pillars. Who starts a studio typically are developer or designer, so they were never actually on the business side of things, right? And I can even tell you, like, don't worry, it's not recorded. There were certain, Blizzard games that, they didn't really think of how they were going to make money until like a quarter before the release of the game. Right. And because, Blizzard itself is very, art led, right? It's very creative led. And I think when you then work with a studio, you can immediately tell the difference between a studio that has someone, like, say, on the marketing side leading it, or someone who is more on the business side leading it, versus someone who's more on the development side leading it. You need the right balance, obviously. But the truth is, like, in my opinion, you can take a mediocre game, and if you have a really solid presence in those three categories, you can build a good business around it. You can take a great game. If you suck at those three categories, you're dead. But you kind of mentioned that whole part about tokens and Web3. They are coming over from Web2. Like, I spoke with a lot of friends who are still Web2, like Square Enix, like Bondi, etc. And there's a lot less resistance against Web3, a lot less hatred. Let's say it's more to like curiosity
from the company side,
from folks that work within like the Web2 industry. Yeah, I'm not sure if it'll trickle down to players, but at least before, developers like, oh, don't talk to me about Web3. And now it's just like more curiosity. Like, what do you think it's is helping out with? I mean, I think that's a good kind of like soft indicator. But I did want to share one thing about the tokens, because like I said, the business model, how you make this grow. I had a conversation with a few VCs a couple of days ago, and I threw them a rather spicy question where I'm like, do you think the introduction of tokens into a funding model where it's like, a safe plus token warrant or whatever has actually diminished the chances of these games doing well? Because you can think about it, if you have this token and you feel like you owe value to the folks that invested and have token warrants, and then you go public and people have bought tokens, are these small, tiny studios not putting themselves in the same position that these public AAA studios are in, where every quarter they have an investor call coming up? And I've been in a position where they're like, hey, here are like $20 million. Can you just pump UA? Like, there's no way we can spend this in any reasonable amount of time with a positive ROI. Like, we don't care. We just need to pump our player numbers for a bullet point for the investor call, right? And are we now seeing indie studios actually pivoting lots of essentially of their energy and time into now thinking, how do I get this token to have value like at launch? And how do I have to, maintain value? If the token goes to zero, I die. And it's completely disconnected from the product of the players. And so I think a lot of studios have actually positioned themselves to fail because they had a token as part of the funding model, and they go release a token and they just aren't prepared or have the structure to actually deal with kind of like that public market side of things.
I want to add like the root cause almost of some of this stuff, especially like with what you said and what you said. Again, ran a top 40 VC. I saw a bunch of pitch decks, and I used to get a lot of pushback sometimes of like, Jorge, why are you asking for certain things? And I get on, game comes in, tells me, hey, I got this great token, like it's gonna go to, and I'll be like, cool, like show me the revenue models, the financial analysis, show me give me the data room. And people used to be like, a data room? What the hell is that, man? What is this guy asking about? And I'm like, yeah, like if you're gonna ask for funding, like I need to see all these different things. Resumes, like the basic question, resumes, like what did you do before this, right? In Web3 gaming, especially now, like where we are, it was all a pretty pitch deck. A pretty pitch deck and a 30-minute or a 45-minute pitch on the game, and then the token, and when it releases, when the vesting is. So I think a lot of the root cause was the way it was funded and the way that these games were even pitching the VCs, and the VCs just kind of aping in and not really even giving the guidelines on, hey, how an economy should work in a game. Not even asking the questions of, hey, how do you onboard a user? Well, how long does it take to build a game? The number one question, how long does it take to build a game? Wasn't being asked. It was, that was a pretty cool deck. That's a sick, oh my God, that's going to be a great NFT. What do you mean? Oh man, $1 million, like, yeah, let's do it. And that was it.
Take you all around, yeah.
Yeah. And so I believe almost like a root cause was from, could be potentially from all this. I'd love to hear that take of like, do you think that's even improved, right? Because now it's funny, I'm getting decks now and I'm like, now I see a data room and I'm like, yes, thank God. Like we're improving. But I think that if the shift happens with better design, better economy design, all this stuff, it also has to happen with the right funding. And I think that, to your point before of Web2 and Web3 funding and the pool that came in, I think it's just gotten smarter. It's gotten smarter funding. It's asking the right question. And maybe we are seeing a slowdown, but maybe it's because of slowdown, it takes also longer now to even get funded. Before, you get funded within 15, maybe even a week. Now I'm hearing that it's actually it's going to take you 90 days to get funded. I'm like, yeah, like that is fast. So is it a whole shift, maybe culturally in the Web3 gaming space, that is finally happening?
You know, I think it's kind of market driven. In the 2021 era, there was a really big push for Web3 gaming because of the success of Axie. And that was driven by the insane numbers that they were putting up. There was a confluence of factors on that front. But one of the big things, mentalities in crypto at that time was, hey, we need more people on chain. What's going to bring really strong mass adoption? They looked at the entire world of different types of industries and said, what is the most likely outcome for mass adoption? And it was a bunch of people who are normally transacting with virtual items, which was games. And so it was a very clear link. It was like, well, duh, of course that should be on chain. And then we can get a lot of people on chain using up this block space so that, you know, all these chains will be valuable, which makes a ton of sense when you look at it like that, right? And so when these huge numbers were being put up by Axie Infinity, it was like, well, we got to throw a bunch of money at these games because of course it's going to work. We probably got a little too over our skis on that front. So
we're not going to the moon, guys, just yet.
And unfortunately, there was a slowdown in Web2 gaming as well post-COVID. Because all these teams overhired and we got a lot of overbloat. And then the funding system pretty much collapsed for Web 2 and Web 3 at the exact same time. And then AI showed up. And the funny thing about Web 3 is there's opportunity costs for everything in the space. And you could be investing in a game, you could be investing in infrastructure, you could be investing in AI. And so when you're putting these things up against each other at a 1-to-1, you're like, apples to oranges, what am I going to do? And right now, AI has that pizzazz, right? Whereas Web 2 VCs for games are really focused on games, right? It's a completely different profile. Whereas Web 3 VCs, they're focused on pretty much anything. And now they're looking at just pure liquid opportunities. Because why be locked up for 4 years when you can just buy the thing that is currently at seed value and then just let it go up and go in and go out whenever you want? It makes perfect sense, actually. And it's a completely different type of VC model because tokens weren't really a strong asset class before this. So I think there's opportunity costs on that front. I think that's why we're seeing a really big slowdown. Will funding come back? I think it's up to, we need a win. Number one, we need to prove that the model works. Frankly, I think that's going to happen over time. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. And it's going to take a lot to justify bringing a lot of value back to this before the model is really figured out.
Let me ask you a quick thing. You mentioned on-chain, right?
Yeah.
I would say probably 85% of the games in Web3 are not even on-chain yet.
Yeah.
So when are they? When what makes it Web3 gaming, right? It's as funny as a question that it is, but it's also pretty serious.
What makes it Web3 gaming is, are we going to use blockchain at any level?
I was gonna say, like, if you're a completely Web2 game and you plug in like a payment rail that allows you to pay in stables, is it now Web3? Right? And it's an excellent question because I mean, back in the day, 2021. At big time, we had this conversation and we had a couple pillars of how we're going to build out that game and studio. And one of them was we came to the realization is players don't give a shit if the game is on chain.
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't care if anything is on chain. They care if they have the option to move it on chain. And they built a business around that. And so like their entire system, their entire open list system is all server side. They call them NFTs. They're not NFTs. There is no blockchain technology there. However, you plug it into any EVM and I can then move my assets and players like, oh, that's fantastic. And they actually, it's more of a Web3 crowd. They're like, that sounds great. And so we made like a conscious effort of like, we don't need to be purists from a technology standpoint. We just need to cater to like, what do they actually care about? I can move my assets whenever I want. Okay, done. And so, yeah, to your point, I think
I say it because, I get the games of like, hey, Jorge, which chain is going to give grants? Do you think I should go there? And I'm like, yeah, I was like, let me ask you, what part of your game is on chain? And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, you realize you're asking the chain for money. That means that you want to use their chain. But if you're not going to use their chain, like, hey, man, how do you ask for some money for a thing that you're not going to use? Yeah. So I think it's just a funny question that I'm like, okay, you brought it up. I'll go into my last question real. Yeah, go for it.
And on that, I think there is some things that are maybe underutilized in how you actually, and what you actually could put on chain.
Yeah.
Like when people say token, like that's a technology. But if you say that to most people in Web3, they're like, okay, so that's the thing I buy and number goes up, right? That's the thing that you speculate on, that there's this inherent assumption that it's going to accrue value. That is sort of like equity, but no one wants to say that out loud for legal reasons. But there's a lot more you can do with that, right? Like you can create something that is meant to act like a currency, or is meant to act like a commodity, meant to represent natural resources, back to the point I had earlier. And what I think actually enables someone to design an economy that leverages a token to do those interesting things that act in a way that is not as speculative, actually having tools that actively disincentivize speculation. Because I think people in Web3 can come in as potentially mess up type of economic interaction. Like I'll point out maybe Star Atlas as an example. They had two currencies. One of them supposed to be, or they had two assets. One of them supposed to be a currency. And currencies are generally supposed to have like stable purchasing power over time. Like if they are wildly fluctuating in the short term in an unexpected way, that harms its ability to be a good currency. And I think people actually speculated on that one more than the one that was supposed to be more of the value accrual asset. And so there are things that people are experimenting with around Gabe Layden's app tokens, for example, as giving studios more flexibility in building in rule sets for how people can engage in the asset of, say, hey, you need to be actively playing this game and have done these things in order to be able to purchase this asset to push out the speculators, or constraining price ranges, or just doing all these things that give a little bit more control, that allow you to use a token in all of these other ways. And I think people just aren't exploring the potential there. They're just like, hey, let's do the same thing we've been doing in Web 2, and then maybe we'll add a token on top of it.
Yeah, there's so much you can do with like Solana tokens, for example, right? Like that's like on-chain forever progression, for example, right?
So many missed opportunities, man.
Yeah, and as we kind of go back, there's so much like copy paste, and that's where I felt like innovation really started plateauing a little while ago. And sometimes, it just takes a rough shakeout for the next wave of innovation to come in and say, hey, we're doing things that are different. Like we tried the speculation route with a number of things. We actually think there's some cool problems you can solve with this tech.
So guys, we're in San Francisco, right? You guys are coming here from wherever parts of the world. What's the event this week that you guys are like, guys, we are not missing this. I don't care what happens. We're stuck in traffic on the freeway. You're getting out, you're running, and you're going to make this event. You have to do it.
Well, we're hosting an event, so yeah, I guess that's going to be our answer. We've got a really cool event for founders and investors. It's something that we do annually. It's for a really nice dinner, and we bring everybody together to actually share these thoughts and bring about that innovation that we're talking about. That's one of our core principles at WinWin. We try not to follow the crowd. We try to think from first principles about why the technology works, where the market is going, what the target market actually wants, and how to create new mechanics that actually get us there. And you've seen that we all have very different backgrounds and different thoughts about how the space is progressing. That's really what makes us special, is we take all these ideas, we smash them together, and we actually come out with a pretty cohesive vision about how are we going to design this specific game economy to succeed in the market.
There you go. This video is probably not going to get released because I didn't get invited to the dinner. And so they better send the dinner invite in order for this to get released. And so you'll know what happens. Only matter of time before we see this on the timelines. Guys, really appreciate you guys coming down. Anything that you guys are here in San Francisco outside of work that you guys are like, we got to go do? Golden Gate Bridge, In-N-Out Burger, Alcatraz, anything that you guys are like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge game show fan. I don't know if you could tell by, how I just talked about it before, but there was this really cool experience that I went to a couple months ago in San Francisco. It's called the Great Big Game Show. It's essentially an escape room, but not an escape room. You're on a game show doing a lot of really fun mini games. Super, super fun. And you get a nice TikTok video at the end of it that they edit together for you to show that you're on this game show. It's awesome.
Yeah. Before you guys head out, you guys are, pretty serious about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, here we go.
And so I wanted to give you guys these cups, right? Because I want to let you know that you guys have to stay liquid in the market. But based on how much talk you guys were going to be doing, you're going to go dinner. You need to hydrate correctly. You need the food to go down correctly. So you need to have the official cup, the Stay Liquid cup from the Creator House, sponsored by Solana. Thank you again, guys. You guys got to make sure you follow these guys. I'll let you know if I go to dinner. I won't know. Maybe I might go to the McDonald's, get an application. They might hire me. Who knows? Guys, thank you for tuning in. And again, another great episode. Follow these guys. All these guys are Chads. And one more time, hit it with the Twitter link.
Nick at Metzler Games.
At Tokenomics.
Kiefer Zhang, Kiefer.
There you go, guys. Win-win. That's another episode. Thank you.